Hello, welcome back to the Hype Mind. Today we're going to talk about femininity and sexuality in regards to femininity. And I invite you and challenge you to do your best while you watch this video with an unbiased opinion and to not compare yourself because it becomes easy when you're engaging in anything that talks about a specific sex, whether it's men or women, to compare yourself to the opposite sex. And that is not what this is about. This is about hearing an opinion in regards to one sex. So associate what you hear today in regards to this sex and not in regards to anything else, because that can be very challenging not to judge or compare. So it is very common that the feminine is associated with nature, right? And there's a lot of important things here. The first is that you see that among a lot of people, especially in American culture. You see a lot of women who are very in tune with their emotions or who are in tune with nature. You see that, I think you see that with a big push with the feminist movement. A lot of feminine women are encouraged to respect, and maybe even more than respect, almost worship their association with nature, right? And I think that's good, because the truth is the feminine has been compared to nature all throughout history, right? Nature is described as Mother Nature, right? That is the image we have. A lot of times there are paintings and visual images of the world being like a womb, or the world being a woman, or a woman like worked into the artwork, into the nature, so it looks like it's just nature, but there's actually like the shape of a woman or a woman's face. And so it's not at all uncommon to see the feminine closely associated with nature. And I think that's a very realistic image and reality, to have that association, right? Because the feminine is the nature. The feminine is creation and destruction, right? The feminine women give birth to children, right? Obviously, you need the man's seed, but women are the birth givers. And so to associate femininity with nature is both common, it's long existent, it's very encouraged in today's society, and I think it's rightfully so. But there's a lot of important characteristics, right? There's a lot of great things about nature. One, it's beautiful. Two, it's mind-blowing. I mean, nature is just, there's so much to nature. If you just take one thing, for example, like trees, there's so many different kinds of trees, and each kind of tree is a different shade or color, and each tree has a different leaf and style. And so it's like there's so much depth, beauty, and uniqueness to nature, right? And nature, the thing about nature is they always say nature always wins, right? Nature always prevails. You'll be like, well, they're gonna cut down the whole forest and build a city. It's like, well, nature will reclaim it. Just you wait. Natural, an earthquake or a tsunami will collapse the city, and all the vines will grow in, and nature will take it back over. It always prevails, right? And so that is a beautiful thing about nature, right? It's very powerful. Nature is very powerful, and it is very, very divine in that sense too. And there definitely is spirituality associated with it, like a lot of women tend to associate with it. But the important thing to know is nature is a lot of other things, right? Nature is also very chaotic. Nature is very prone to change, right? We see the seasons, we see the weather, we see the ocean, we see the wind, we see the terrain of the world. It is very different in all areas, and it is always changing, right? Volcanic eruptions, tsunamis, earthquakes, the tectonic plates of the world, the environments, global warming, whatever, all these things, right? Nature is very prone to change. It is not uncommon. And so that's the important thing to understand about women when it comes to sexuality is women are prone to change. And um, just like you'll see that a lot of times with a woman's emotions, they'll change very quickly. They'll go from very upset to very happy, or from very in a great mood, being wonderful to be around. All of a sudden, they'll be very angry at you for something little. I think a lot of people in relationships experience that. Um, and so, what does this have to do with sexuality? Well, I'll tell you, because a lot of women, and typically you see this in a lot of younger women in our culture, but I think it goes for women in general. A lot of women will be like, I just want to explore. I just want to see what's out there. I want to experiment. Um, and I think it's important for everybody to understand, men and women, that that is the naturistic side of women. They seek change, right? And so, what am I getting at here is that that's actually not a good quality. The whole to encourage the belief that you need to get out and not be in a relationship and just experiment with people and your sexuality, that is a perversion of the nature of women because you're encouraging something that actually um, you can't actually satisfy. You're instilling a belief in a woman that it's okay to experiment sexuality um, in any way possible, specifically while you're young, um, because, oh, that's just the stage of your life. Nonsense. That's the essence of a woman is change, is to be like nature, is to constantly change your emotions and your opinion. And that's why it's important not to be promiscuous or um, super into exploring your sexuality because that's where you get super lost. You get caught up in constantly changing and never being satisfied. Because, because look at nature. Nature, again, provides a wonderful example of this. Again, I don't know the answer for sure, but if you Googled how many types of trees are there in the world, there's probably like 1,000 different species, 100 species, subspecies of each species. Like there's so much diversity, right? So it's like, okay, to experiment sexuality and sexually, of course, there's always going to be something new and different you could try. And of course, all the potential partners you could be with are going to give you something different, whether it's better or worse. So it's silly to think that the more you experiment, the more you're going to find what you want. Um, if because while sometimes that seems like the case, the opposite can also be true. Sometimes you only end up more confused as to what you want. You're like, well, I like that in that moment, and now I don't like that, and I like this, and I don't know if I still like that. And sometimes you end up going backwards. And I think that's specifically what happens when you're exploring your sexuality, is instead of honing what you like down, you end up with so many different options that you're intertwined with emotionally, because sex and intimacy are very emotional, that you actually end up confused as to what you want, and you end up getting confused and lost. And so, what the biggest thing I'm really trying to get at is, yes, women are like nature. I think that's an amazing teaching, and I think that is a beautiful comparison because nature is beautiful and unique and very diverse and wonderful, and it it is so plentiful and beautiful and fruitful. Like nature is just phenomenal. Honestly, it is a beautiful piece of creation of the world, um, and it is a great image of women to compare them to nature. But the thing you have to understand is, just like nature, women change. They are constantly changing. Their emotions are constantly changing. Their thoughts are constantly changing because their emotions are constantly changing. And so it is dangerous for a woman to go out and be promiscuous under the title of exploring my sexuality, because because that desire is normal for women. That desire to change and to want, that desire to change, right? And so among those things that are changing is that sexual desire, um, is normal. So it's not okay to feed that, because it actually gets you lost. You have to understand that you have to pick a point and stay focused on it. And I don't necessarily mean one person. I don't necessarily mean you should only date one person your whole life. Um, because sometimes you will meet someone and they won't be who you thought they were, or they won't be the right person for you. Totally, totally understand that. Um, but to run around sexually exploring until you find what you want is silly, because you'll never find what you want. Because as a woman, you're always changing. So your wants are always changing. And sometimes you have to realize that what's important isn't finding exactly what you want sexually, because because ultimately what you want is to be happy and to do good and to love. And so when you find someone who is able to give all those things to you that you're able to give to them as well, that's when you need to actually embrace what you have and continue to grow and build on what you already have, rather than keep exploring. Because um, I guess you could say it outweighs, in this case, your human need to be happy and to share life, right? And to have connection with someone, have connection, and to love and to be happy, and to be able to give, those needs overpower your need for change and to explore as a woman. And you need to learn to commit in some cases, or to be very selective and not promiscuous, so that you can focus on the bigger needs of your humanity, um, rather than something that is always going to change and that is unsatisfiable. Because the reality is, just like with many other things, as a woman, you're you're going to experience many fleeting emotions of what you want, um, sexually. And if you acted on every one of them, well, one, it would be impulsive, and two, you're going to realize some of them weren't important. If I acted on every emotion I had, there would be a lot of people who got punched in the face, right? And I would say a lot of things that I would regret saying later. And so that's a good comparison for acting. And I mean, the same can be said for guys. If I acted, or a man acted on every, or a person in general acted on every single fleeting emotion of sexual desire, or sexual curiosity, not even desire sometimes, just curiosity, then, I mean, ultimately that's not good, because to some degree you need to have self-control. Discipline is a virtue, temperance is a virtue. um, and so to anybody would tell you that you shouldn't act on every single desire, sexual desire. And so that's the thing, is women have to understand, because they're like nature, they are prone to change. And because they're prone to change, their sexual desires are going to have fleeting emotions that are going to come in and out. And they're going to think, I want this, I don't want that. Now I want this, now I don't want that. And I want this, and I want this, and I want that. And it's going to constantly change like that, right? But ultimately, what's going to truly satisfy a woman is, just like it will a human, is that desire for love and connection, the desire to be happy, the desire to give. And yeah, I mean, ultimately, the desire for love and the desire for connection are the greatest ones. And those are the feelings you really need to embrace, especially when you know where you have them or where you could find them, rather than acting on um, those those emotions as they come and go and come and go, right? Because as a woman, you're going to change and you're going to experience those things. So you need to look at what's ultimately best for you, which is striving for that true love and connection. And that is not through exploring your sexuality to the fullest extent, because there's so much more to a human being than their sexuality. There's tons more to a human being than their sexuality. Um, yeah. that's that. Let us know what you think. And thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.